Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. It is your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself. Today, guys, we are fighting Seregios. Seregios? I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Not sure. Everyone just refers to him as Steve or Pinecone or maybe something like that. Regardless, though, here we are. We're fighting him today. If I'm to remember what people have been telling me, as opposed to what I actually know, he was supposed to be a flagship monster of some sorts. He was, if anything, not necessarily like the main antagonist, if you could really call him that, but he was, I guess you could say he's kind of like an antagonist in the 4 series, like Monster Hunter 4, and I believe 4 Ultimate as well. It's a story thing. You have to not read the story, you have to play the story to really understand his true purpose in there. But here he is. He's a very interesting wyvern. He's really unique because with him, he brings his ability of bleed, the bleeding ability that you've probably ran into since fighting Shogun Centaur, came from this man right here. Shogun didn't have that bleeding ability until he came into be. And one of the coolest things about him is his ability to fling his scales, and when he flings his scales, they will hit you and they will themselves inflict bleeding. However, though, if they hit you, they will hit you multiple times. It will cause you to stagger a bit on hits, but then afterwards you will be hit with a hard knockdown, which I'm going to refer to as like you get knocked back. When you do get knocked back, if you decide to stand there and allow yourself to get hit 3 times with the scales, because the scales, they don't hit you 3 times instantly. They'll hit, wait like half a second, they'll hit again, another like half a second, then they'll hit for the 3rd time, or maybe one more time, I can't count, but regardless, they work in that particular fashion, and then you get hit with the bleeding. So what you could do is, if you get stuck, because you're usually stuck in this particular animation as it happens, just roll your best, do your best to roll out the way, and you should be okay when he throws the scales out at you. He can do this from swinging his tail around, he can throw them out from his neck, a whole multitude of ways in which you can do this, so just kind of watch out for that. Also, his claws and his talons, they actually have the ability to give you the bleeding as well, so when he goes to scratch you and things like that, watch out for that, because you probably can be afflicted with it that way. Last, before we get on to the good stuff, his roar is very puny. He will roar. It is susceptible to get away from it with regular earplugs, I should say. But if you don't have earplugs, that's fine, because his roar only really affects you for like a very, very short amount of time, similar to that of the Nargacuga. The thing is, though, he will roar and be stuck in his roar animation long after rather, you've recovered from the roar itself. So he's actually one of the few monsters where he will roar and then he's still roaring and you're able to hit him again. So fighting him with earplugs probably isn't like, I mean, I wouldn't break a 20, you know what I mean, if that makes any sense. Like if you just need to have earplugs, go for it. But if you like, I ain't really tripping, don't even worry about it, because his roar is very puny. You won't really need to block it, because it really doesn't do too much. However, let's get to the good stuff. So the good stuff is this: the Seregios, his armor. Oh, we get ahead of ourselves. Let's back it up a bit. Now, his weak spots. Okay, his weak spots, believe it or not, is his stomach, neck, and then his hind legs, in that order. Now, the funny thing is, I fought him here with the Charge Blade, which is the first time I ever fought him with the Charge Blade, and I did it in like about 12 minutes. I went back, fought him with a Lance, and did it in like 6, because the stomach is his weakest spot. And with the Lance or other weapons actually get up close to the monster, and you don't really move too much. By that I mean like your attack don't actually move your character far across like the body of the monster, making you actually attack different hit zones between one combo. You can do a lot of damage to him, and you can end him very quickly. So let's just say that the Lance versus him is a 100% win for you. Now, his weakness, though, in terms of elementals, is going to be Thunder followed by Ice. Now, you can get away with Water, too. Thunder only has like not Thunder. Ice has a slightly better multiplier on his head versus Water, but everything else the exact same. But Thunder is going to be the cat's meow when it comes to fighting my man's right here. So if you have some Thunder, you're in good hands. Just beat him upside his head. Well, excuse me, not just his head. Beat him in his stomach, head, and his hind legs. Now let's talk about his gear. His weapons, let's talk about that first, because it's a bit interesting. His weapons are kind of cool. They're raw-based weapons. They don't have an element. They do have affinity. Usually it's about 10 affinity, sometimes 20 affinity, depending on if you're using his regular or his hyper weapons. But for the most part, like I said, he has raw weapons. There are no elemental weapons all the way to the end of the game. At end game, his weapons usually range to about like 310 or so attack. He has hyper variants, which means they usually, well, you know about hyper weapons. I've explained to you, sometimes these weapons take on higher sharpnesses, lower attack, higher element, less element, etc. like that. In his case, you lose 20 raw, but gain natural purple sharpness. Now, standard, you don't have natural purple sharpness, you have natural white sharpness. However, after conversing with some friends of mine who are very knowledgeable about the mathematics of Monster Hunter, explains to me that the normal Seregios weapons actually, at the end of the day, their damage output is slightly higher. However, the thing about these two weapons is the fact that you're going with numbers in between. Like, yes, it may be slightly higher, but at the end of the day, with the multipliers and everything accounted for, the actual damage output isn't like better. You know, it's they're neck and neck for the most part. What I would say though is, if you absolutely just need maximum attack, sure, go for the regular one. However, but if you want to actually have close to the same maximum actual attack output, and you want to squeeze a skill in there, I will go with the hyper ones, because the hyper weapons actually have 2 slots as opposed to 1 from the normal weapon. So you can actually get a 2-for-1er or maybe 2 additional 1-slot gems in there. So think about that. Use the hyper for utility and use the raw one for the raw actual damage. So with that said, the last thing I want to talk to you about his weapons, that his weapons have a special ability that if you evade while you have one of his weapons equipped, I believe after the 5th evade, you will regain 5 units of sharpness. Now, in layman's terms, if you roll around at the speed of sound with places to go, you can sharpen your weapon on the go. And not weird Sonic meme terms, it just means that, let's say if you have a sword and shield, okay, if you roll around on the ground a few times, your weapon will sharpen by itself, all naturally. So theoretically, if you use a weapon or you have a particular playstyle that has you evade a lot often, or quite often actually, you could pretty much do very well with one of his weapons and never have to sharpen in a fight, because the white sharpness that it gives you if you're using the regular is pretty good. Now the purple isn't that great, so you might want to run like razor sharp or use high usage of that particular ability that the weapons have to sharpen themselves, but that's up to you. Now let's get on to the armors. The not exciting part. The exciting part about this monster was his weapons. So yeah, his weapons are really good when it comes to raw. They have their really sweet secret ability of sharpening themselves if you evade. If you're lancing or gun lancing, you actually need 7 side steps or back hops to sharpen your weapon, as opposed to 5 rolls. So that's a negative. But anyway, his armor is as follows. So he has a low rank armor and it's actually kind of wimpy, but it gives you crit draw. It gives you Constitution +1 and Short Sprinter. It's a negative ability that actually doubles your stamina usage while you sprint in black. It's the reverse to Marathon Runner. The high rank version, Seregios S, gives you critical draw and 14 points into Constitution. Now you can get Constitution +2 because they actually give you 3 slots in the armor itself, but it's only 3 slots, and I mean, in high rank it's really not that good. It's just two skills. Lastly, and there's only 3, which is kind of a bummer, Seregios X, the G rank variant, gives you crit draw, blade scale hone, and Constitution +2. Now blade scale hone is the ability to actually just roll all on your own and sharpen your weapon. It doesn't have to be a Seregios weapon. So if you have the G rank Seregios armor or just the blade scale hone ability, you can sharpen all of your weapons just by rolling. And there you go. So for the most part, that's pretty much Seregios. His gear, his armor, his weapons, his gear, his armor and weapons, they're kind of okay. His armor is kind of butt cheeks. It has that 1 skill in G rank, but you know, it is what it is. And there's that. The way in which you should fight him, though, consider fighting him very akin to basically anything you fought already. Basically anything that's highly wyvern, so like Rathalos and Raytheon, those types of monsters right there. Again, he really isn't very healthy. This is a really bad showing, because I'm not very adept with the charge blade yet. But again, if you follow along the same path of actually attacking his stomach, if you use a lancer or something like that, if you attack his stomach with some thunder, you're going to do very, very well. Like, I kind of wish I could jump back and did this video again and instead recorded with a lance of some sort instead of using a charge blade. But you know, of course, I want to keep the gameplay mixed up for you guys, that way you can actually see how certain weapons work when fighting other monsters, because you yourself might be a X weapon user and I'm just a lance user. Okay, if I didn't want you guys to learn and see how things actually work, I would have used the lance the entire time. You guys would have learned next to nothing when it comes to fighting these monsters. Granted, I'm not the most adept when it comes to using these other weapons, but I try. And I use a variety of playstyles, so that way maybe some people who are curious can actually see a way in which that you can come out on top with a W by using my playstyle while watching me use your weapon. So that's that. But with that being said, everyone, that's pretty much all I can really give you on the Seregios. I mean, he's one of the most interesting monsters. He's really not. It's one of those things where it's just the monster's kind of cool, but its weapons are even more important than the monster is. So a lot of people, they tend to fight him just to get his weapons, at least one of his weapons. I recommend getting at least one of his weapons. I totally recommend it because, I mean, it has great raw, the ability to sharpen themselves. I mean, it's a very solid choice to get. So again, run it. I recommend it, and you should be in good hands. But with that being said, everyone, I'm going to end this video relatively short. I mean, there's a few more. I think it's like another minute left, but it's just me killing them. It's not a big deal. I'll talk to y'all in the next one. The next video is going to be Brachydios, so look out for that. I will probably have that video for you guys this weekend. It's Thursday, technically, as I speak. So I don't know if I'm going to upload it today, Thursday, or Friday, but it doesn't matter because you'll find out when you watch the video. Take care.